So I think we're going to get started. But before we do, I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us. And as we do for all of our events, we just wanted to take a quick photo. So Andrew, if you want to take me off spotlight for a second. And Ahid is going to take a photo if everyone wants to smile awkwardly for 10 to 15 seconds. Perfect. Okay, she's given me a thumbs up. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Before I kick it over to Andrew Pariser, the VP of RESCON, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that RESCON's office is located in the Territory and Treaty 13 lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Haudenosaunee. Andrew, I'll kick it over to you.
Thanks, Amina. Just going to take you off spotlight. So I am honored to give the opening remarks. And I'd just like to say hello to everyone who's taking the time to sign in and participate today, as well as the panelists. So I'd like to start by recognizing RESCON's Anti-Racism Committee, including the chair, Amina Dib, who has led this initiative. She's worked very hard with some key leadership people, including Ahid from RESCON, as well as the chairs of the different subcommittees, including Hila, Omar Kale from Daniels, Madeline Zito from Great Gulf, Danielle Fiedler from Tridel, and Diane Laranja from Filion-Wakely. This is our second event. It's a follow-up event to our kickoff event last year. And this is a very important issue to RESCON as support of the board. And we are very committed to meaningful change. This committee was formed during the summer of 2020 after nooses were found on several construction sites, and it fits into our labor supply initiatives. And we're focused on how we can better support and include Black and other BIPOC individuals as they seek to enter the construction industry. We also view this issue as a health and safety issue. Racist acts have never been condoned or allowed in construction sites, but we obviously were not doing everything that we could or enough, because the legislation, including workplace harassment and violence legislation, it simply wasn't cutting it. And so that's why we came together to do more. Today, we are specifically going to recognize what we've done and where we're going. In addition, in recognition of September 30th, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, we're going to ask everyone to wear an orange shirt on Thursday to honor the lives lost and the survivors of residential schools. This day stems from an Indigenous-led grassroots effort to draw attention and recognize those who survived as well as those who did not. On the agenda today is Minister Gill. We'll feature a roundtable we'll feature updates from Amina Dib, highlight the efforts and successes of Building Opportunity for Life Today with Rally Chakarova. And then we'll bring together 3 industry representatives for a panel discussion. With that, I'm going to take the opportunity to give it back to Amina Dib, who will introduce our first speaker.
Thanks, Andrew. Our first speaker is Parm Gill, a member of Provincial Parliament for Milton. He is a diligent advocate for public safety and maintaining equality in the community in Ontario. Parm was appointed to Cabinet in 2021 and currently serves as the Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. Before being elected to the Ontario Legislature in 2018, Parm was the federal member of Parliament in the House of Commons from 2011 to 2015. Parm was appointed by the Prime Minister as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veteran Affairs and later the Minister of International Trade. Throughout his tenure, Parm was a member of many committees, including the Standing Committee of Public Safety and National Security, Health, Canadian Heritage, Veterans Affairs, and International Trade. Parm has always felt strongly about keeping the youth of Ontario and Canada as a whole safe. He believes that the youth is the future of our great country, and it is important to keep them safe and on the path to success. In 2012, Parm introduced a private member's bill, C-394. His bill introduced a criminal code offense prohibiting the recruitment or encouragement of a person to join a criminal organization. The bill passed and became a law in June 2014. Since most criminal organizations look to youth when recruiting new members, the bill works to keep our streets, neighborhoods, and communities safer, which has always been a top priority for PARM. PARM is working hard to achieve a safer Ontario, and as a resident of Milton, is committed to working tirelessly for his constituents. Welcome, Minister Gill.
Well, thank you, Amina, for that kind introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, first and foremost, of course, to RESCON for the invitation for me to come and share a few words with all of you. It's very encouraging to see this is an annual event, and I applaud your commitment to this important issue. Racism, hate, and discrimination has absolutely no place, of course, in our province, and I think we can all agree with that. And I know everyone here shares this vision, and the strong leadership between industry leaders, workers, and government will lead to positive change. And together, we can and will address racism. From boardrooms to job sites, we will create a safer and more equitable workplace for everyone, and we will build the right foundation for a thriving and more inclusive Ontario for all of us to live and enjoy. I'm here today both as the Minister responsible for citizenship and multiculturalism, and also the Minister responsible for anti-racism. Stepping into these new roles has been a great honor, of course, for me personally, because I am very passionate about some of the challenges that we need to address. Having moved to Canada, of course, at a young age of 12, I've experienced firsthand what this country and this province can offer, while also seeing opportunities to make Ontario a more equitable home for everyone. I'm also a member of the racialized community, and I'm listening to Indigenous, Black, Asian, Jews, Muslim, and other racialized communities on how our province can do more to advance racial equity. And I am deeply committed to working with our partners to advance our government's anti-racism mandate. Ontario's Anti-Racism Directorate, or also known as ARD, leads initiatives to, of course, eliminate systemic racism, address hate, and advance racial equity in Ontario. We'll, of course, be hearing from Nosa Arif-Brown, Assistant Deputy Minister of the ARD, in this panel discussion, of course, later. Under her leadership, the ARD is developing anti-racism programs to support multiple sectors and communities in our province. And that includes, of course, the construction industry as well. In terms of some of the challenges ahead, we've seen incredible strength and resilience from the construction industry during the COVID-19 pandemic. Together, we've worked to protect the health and safety of all workers and chart a path to economic recovery. But we know new challenge is, of course, on the horizon. Over the next decade, we expect the construction sector will need about 100,000 workers. And that's almost 22,000 more workers than are expected to enter the industry. We also know that workers from racialized and Indigenous communities are significantly underrepresented in construction, and we need to move any and all barriers standing in their way to create a diverse and healthy workforce. I'm here to say we have an opportunity right now to build the workforce of tomorrow, one that's talented, one that's diverse, and ready for the jobs ahead. In terms of the anti-racism initiative, so how do we get there? What is our blueprint? We can start with creating more equitable workplaces for everyone to work in. The ARD has been developing an online employer resource hub to support the hiring and advancement of Indigenous, Black, and other racialized talent. These resources will help employers increase their understanding of systemic racism so they can proactively put an end to discriminatory practices. We intend to launch this new resource hub very soon, so please stay tuned on that. the ARD is also working with partner ministries like the Ministry of Labor, Training and Skills Development, trades to remove barriers to the talent pipeline and create more equitable opportunities. Just last month, our government announced 2 investments to provide free training in construction and prioritizing those from Indigenous communities. This includes over $1 million to train 645 people in the Northern Ontario, with funding to NORCAT and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local Union 1687, and almost $350,000 to mentor and train 60 people in Sarnia region, with funding to Leona Local 1089 Training Center. We are also investing in programs to help youth from underrepresented backgrounds train for and secure apprenticeships in the construction sector. This, of course, includes over $600,000 to the Hammerheads program to train 390 young people, and over $2 million to train 150 underprivileged youth for in-demand construction jobs in Ottawa, Hamilton, and Greater Toronto area, including those experiencing homelessness and living in community housing. Brook Restoration Limited is leading the training and will offer jobs to those who complete the program. So just in conclusion, anti-racism initiatives can help to create meaningful, well-paying jobs to support families and communities. They can foster equitable, inclusive, and high-performing workplaces, and they can create growth opportunities not only for companies, but also for entire province. In the roundtable and panel discussion today, I'm sure you'll hear more examples of leadership collaboration in this workplace, and we're going to build something great for generations to come. And I am personally very excited to be part of the design, and I want to thank all of you for taking the time and again allowing me to say a few words. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Gill. I, for one, am looking very forward to working with you in your ministry and collaborating so that we can increase more the employment rates of Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the construction industry. So thank you for being with us here today. Moving on, I'm going to share my screen and I'll give everyone an update on the work we've been doing for the Anti-Racism Roundtable. I'm assuming this looks good?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So the Anti-Racism Roundtable, as most of you on the call in the event know, was launched last September in response to nuisances on construction sites, which occurred in the summer. RESCON as an association was quick to act following those incidents and released statements and took a strong stance that RESCON and our members stand strongly against any acts of racism and discrimination in the industry. As Andrew said during his opening remarks, our executive board made anti-racism and anti-discrimination a strategic priority. And we began kicking off a webinar, which, as Andrew said, also we had our first addressing racism in construction webinar last September, and forming an industry roundtable / coalition, which is now known to be as the Anti-Racism Roundtable. So the Roundtable is an industry coalition which brings together builders, subtrades, education stakeholders, employment agencies, representatives from the province, and our union partners to develop short and long-term goals surrounding racism and discrimination in construction. We have 3 subcommittees. So the first one is training and education, which is focused on removing barriers for BIPOC youth to enter the skilled trades through specialized training programs. We've launched the BIPOC Youth Advisory Committee, which is a smaller subgroup made up of myself, the chair of the roundtable, and current youth who are going through the construction industry through some of our partner programs. So that's a kind of a direct outreach to people who are kind of just getting their foot in the door in the construction industry and hearing about their experience. And then for future engagement with guidance counselor associations, because what we've heard is that guidance counselors are not, they don't have the resources to actually recommend or promote construction as a career. So how do we better engage with them? And then there's the workplace policies subcommittee. So our priority there is to develop anti-racism and anti-discrimination training for new entrants into the workforce, as well as existing workers. We're also involved in developing anti-racism and anti-discrimination employer policies and better understanding how we can improve engagement with the workforce so that there is a better grasp and understanding of existing provincial law on workplace harassment and violence. And then the third subcommittee is marketing and communication. So how do we raise awareness to the public and roundtable stakeholders of roundtable initiatives, as well as building on the CARE campaign. In terms of what we've done, specifically in 2020, as I said, we officially launched the Anti-Racism Roundtable, but a bit before that, we were doing some stuff to prepare for that. So in August of 2020, we launched the CARE Construction Against Racism Everywhere campaign, which was, the main part of that was distributing hard hat stickers to construction workers. And this is to foster allyship on site. The second thing we did was the first annual Addressing Racism in Construction webinar in September. Also in September, we took part in Mayor Tory's call with the construction industry on racism in construction. As I said, in October, we officially launched the roundtable. We've participated in a number of government consultations, one of them being the Black Youth Action Plan. And then in November, along with some other roundtable members, we facilitated a large toolbox talk featuring the mayor, Minister McNaughton, the former Chief Prevention Officer, Ron Koleski, and representatives from Mirocan, Alliston, Tridel, and Leona Local 183. And then finally, in December, RESCON released the Anti-Discrimination and Anti-Racism Employer Policy Template, which we did distribute to RESCON members as well as roundtable members for them to incorporate for their business. And what we've done in 2021 so far, in February of 2021, we were signatories to the Toronto Declaration of Inclusive Workplaces and Communities. In March 2021, we hosted the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination webinar. Also in March 2021, we officially requested in the form of a letter to the Prevention Council, an amendment to 4-step and 5-step training to include anti-racism and anti-discrimination. In April, we launched the CARE webpage, which is a home for all of the Anti-Racism Roundtable updates. Ahid will put that in the chat so that everyone can visit that webpage. And then in May, we launched the BIPOC Youth Advisory Committee, again, to generate greater insight about BIPOC youth's experience as they are entering the construction industry and as they are undergoing training and receiving their first jobs. And what we're doing now. So one of the things that Ahid and I have been working on in the Marketing and Communication Subcommittee has been focused on is the BIPOC in Construction Testimonial campaign. And this is an effort to share stories and experiences of BIPOC workers in construction to encourage more youth to consider careers in construction. So we're hoping to release or launch that campaign the first week of November. So stay tuned to RESCON social media for more information on that. We're also going to be launching an industry survey to get more feedback on the anti-racism and anti-discrimination employer policy template, just to see if we can update it further and improve it for our members as well as roundtable members. We're going to continue our advocacy for amending the 4-step and 5-step training to include anti-racism and anti-discrimination training. And we will continue our engagement with the BIPOC Youth Advisory Committee to generate greater insights, as well as to better understand what more we could be doing to promote and market careers in construction to the next generation of construction workers. In terms of next steps and how attendees here today could get involved, you can support roundtable initiatives, including our ask for amended 4-step and 5-step training. Ahid will also, I think she's already done it, but if you wanted to visit the RESCON Care webpage just to find out about more updates, you can there. If you don't already have Care hard hat stickers and you wanted them, we have tons. We also have masks now. So we're happy to continue to distribute those. And then finally, it's important that we make anti-racism and anti-discrimination a health and safety priority by including it as a safety topic in your toolbox talks, through your on-site orientations, and through the joint health and safety committees. But that is all for me. I will stop sharing my screen. And moving on, I will kick it over to Ahid.
Hi, everyone. Glad to have you all with us today. Next, we have Rally from Bolt, who will be presenting the Bolt program. Rally Chakarova is the executive director of the Bolt Charitable Foundation. Bolt was started by Tridel with a mandate to assist under-resourced youth connect to careers in construction through raising awareness, career exploration, and financial support for skill training and post-secondary education. Prior to this role, Rally was the director of policy at the Toronto Region Board of Trade, leading its work on talent and trade. As a former senior advisor to the provincial cabinet minister, including Ontario's Minister of Economic Development and Growth, Rally has an in-depth and practical understanding of the government policy. Rally is a board member of ACCES Employment, a member of RESCON's Anti-Racism Roundtable, and a member of the Women in Construction Committee at the George Brown College. She holds a Master's of Public Administration from Queen's University and a specialist in international development and political science from University of Toronto. Rally, thank you for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. I guess what I should start with saying is congratulating RESCON for leading this initiative. It is so important within the industry, and we're also thrilled here to share a little bit about what our foundation does and the programs that we have, especially in this context, because a lot of the youth that we work with is BIPOC youth. So this has been an incredible opportunity to see sort of the shift in the industry with an effort to make it a more inviting and positive environment for the youth that we serve. So with that, I'll just share my screen, make sure that everybody can see that. Is that good?
We can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So we are BOLT. It stands for Building Opportunities for Life Today. And as I had said, our mission is quite simple. We're here to inspire the new generation of industry professionals, as we heard from the minister. And as everybody pretty much knows on this call, shortages in the industry are large and will continue to be if action is not taken directly. And we really do that through three main pillars. That's creating awareness, because we know that youth and the influencers in their lives are not simply aware of all the great careers that exist in the construction industry. We do immersive career exploration programs, which I'll go over in a little bit more. And of course, we provide financial support to support both pathways into career into construction. So while we are very active in recruiting for the skilled trades and the apprenticeship route, we also support post-secondary programs that lead to a career in construction, such as project management, construction management, engineering, architecture, and many others. And our focus is not exclusively on BIPOC, but considering the demographic that we serve, we see a lot of overlap with racialized youth that come and access our services. But our target audience is under-resourced youth in the GTA 17 to 29. And under-resourced for us is a pretty large umbrella, and it does include youth that are low income, those that have aged out of care, those that are on social assistance, those that live in community housing or have had encounters with the justice system, and really anyone who is far away from the labor market and really facing many barriers in accessing meaningful employment opportunities, including those in construction. And what makes us different is that we are industry-led. And as you heard, BOLT was launched by Tridel in 2009 as a program and became an independent charitable foundation in 2013. And thanks to Tridel support, they remain our principal and founding sponsor and has helped us foster additional trade and industry partnerships all along the supply chain within the industry, which has been incredibly helpful in connecting training and employment opportunities for our youth. So a little bit about our successes. Since 2014, our support for skill training program has led to more than 180 apprenticeships, and our scholarship program has distributed more than 430 scholarships totaling 1.4 million. Again, I would say probably about 85% of the youth that we served and that have benefited from those opportunities are BIPOC youth. Starting with creating awareness, one of our first programs are called Speak Outs, where we invite industry professionals to share a little bit about how they started in the industry and provide any advice, tips, and insights into how youth can get started in that, as well as provide an industry outlook and really an overview of all of the different careers in the construction industry. I like to refer to it as sort of a career day specific to construction. And we do that in high schools, elementary schools, as well as with community agencies and many of our partners. And as Amina alluded a little bit earlier, we know that this is a really important conversation to have, because in a recent study that RESCON did with 400 construction workers in the GTA area, only 8% were actively encouraged by a guidance counselor to pursue a career in construction, and many were discouraged from doing so. So we know that there's a huge gap of information that we need to close, along with many different stereotypes that still exist about what the industry is like, what the work in the industry is like, and what the conditions there might be for those that are underrepresented in the industry, including women and racialized minorities. Second is, I mentioned our immersive career exploration program. So we've just wrapped up our 4th day of discovery for this year last week. And basically during the COVID times, it is an opportunity for youth to get a guided tour of a live construction site So it's really taking them out of the classroom and getting them to walk in the area, see all of the different professionals and careers that are involved in building a high-rise residential building, and really get to see for themselves and experience what that looks like. And if that all goes well and they are actually interested in continuing the conversation about a career in construction, the job shadowing is our signature program, which is 2 weeks on site, shadowing up to 10 different industry professionals to get really that one-on-one time and get to talk to them about what their job actually really look like, what they do day to day, how they got into the industry, and really importantly for the construction industry in particular and the skilled trades specifically is access to those networks and employment opportunities. For a lot of the youth that we serve, they don't have somebody that they know that can actually help get them into the industry. So they don't actually get to benefit from sort of the word of mouth employment opportunities that are still very prevalent in the industry. So getting them actually to be there on site, again, out of the classroom, into the day-to-day activity really gives them a good indication if construction is the right choice for them. And it opens up the door to different career opportunities. For example, we have a youth right now who went into this super eager to be electrician because those are the only skilled trades that exist in their mind as carpentry, plumber, and electrician. And he found out that he is actually very interested and very passionate about sprinkler fitting. So now we'll look towards training and connecting them with that. And after the job shadowing is done, what we do is we provide financial support for whatever those next steps might be. If they're interested in pursuing post-secondary education, we'll connect them with our scholarship program. If they're interested in pursuing skill training, then we will connect them to a union center or an employer for direct on-the-job training. And for some who may not yet be job ready, we do work with our partners such as Hammerheads and Building Up to really provide some of those additional wraparound supports and additional training despite the skill training to ensure that they're actually successful in the industry. And what we started at the beginning of this year, because we do know that representation matters, is a feature with the hashtag Building Industry Talent. You can see it on our Instagram and also on Instagram with that hashtag. So we've recently expanded our job shadowing program to provide more supports. And Nelson was actually the first person that went through that. So you see his quote there about his experience after job shadowing, during job shadowing, sorry, he was able to connect with the Lehman Group and found out that he's very passionate about high-rise Rodman work. So after he was finished with that, we connected him with the LEUNA 183 training, and he finished his training on Friday, and on Monday he was on a job site. And you can see the last sentence there that my life has completely changed in the span of 3 months, and I cannot thank Bolt enough. And I'm really glad to say that this is not a once sort of an experience. These are many of our other success stories. And what I'd really like to share here is that they've all taken different paths. So Zachary and Erica went through the Building Up program. Jamaica went through the Hammerheads program. And Tristan, Sakaria, and Markel were placed directly with us. But you see the diversity in unions and in career paths that they actually took, and the list goes on and on and on. So to talk a little bit about our partnerships, which I think is really important because the strength in Bolt is one of intermediary. So you can only imagine being a young person trying to navigate, training and employment opportunities and how to get started in their career. And you can only imagine what that looks like in the construction industry, which is that much more, I think, confusing and a bit of a maze because of all the different players that need to align for them to have those relationships be created. So just like the industry leadership is one of our secrets, all of these different partnerships are the other. And what that allows us to do is actually assess youth on their job readiness and on their specific needs, and then refer them to either a community partner or directly to an employer or to some of the more intensive programs like Hammerheads and Building Up, as I mentioned earlier. So our guiding approach, and I think how we've been successful in both recruiting and retention in the industry is, and this is borrowing a mantra from Andrea Delzato, who says this all the time, is that talent is everywhere and opportunity is not. And we're here to create that opportunity. And the, I guess, secret, if there's anything like that, is that we are client-centered and flexible. And what that means is that we adjust our programming and we adjust those opportunities that we share based on the youth themselves, what they need, and what their sort of short-term and long-term career goals are, and what type of barriers they're facing. I've already talked about the industry-led component, which I think is critical for any successful workforce development, as well as the intermediary role and connector within the broader workforce development ecosystem. Another point that we've shared consistently with the government and with a lot of the consultations that have happened, we're proactive in our recruitment efforts. We are a little bit reactive because we do have referrals from our community partners, but we actually go into the community and we recruit youth and encourage them to join the construction industry, which is critical, again, if they don't have anybody else in their lives that they can help them, or that they can see be successful and sort of follow in their footsteps. The other is also critical, which is objective career advice. We have no skin in the game. Our main goal is that they connect to rewarding employment. And of course, it's around wraparound supports and mentorship in the industry. And lastly, on this topic, I will be lying, and I don't think anybody will believe me if I said that we haven't had incidents with the youth that we serve and with their employers, but that is, we're privileged to be very selective with our partnerships and with the industry partners that we work, and we're really grateful for them stepping forward with, Tridel sort of leading the way, and many others after in addressing this in a meaningful way. And for us, that really starts with the acknowledgement that there is a program, there's a problem, and racism still exists in the industry and it needs to be addressed. A zero tolerance policy, which means that any kind of incidences are addressed in a timely and meaningful way, and that's really critical. There needs to be an investigation, there needs to be a review of what has taken place to sort of evaluate what the next step should be. The staff and supervisor education, training, and expectations is really critical. And the last, but certainly not least, because I do believe that this starts the entire process, is you need to have executive management leadership that sets the right tone, that tone being a zero tolerance policy, having process, procedures, and training in place to address these types of incidences. And I would say in construction, that's particularly difficult, especially in a unionized environment. Only reason being is that there's so many different players. So if an incident takes place at one of the high-rise construction sites, there are really three, different stakeholders that need to be involved. As the developer, the subcontractor, the employer, and the union that need to be aligned on the right approach forward. And we have seen, tremendous sort of results in addressing that with meaningful penalties for the individuals that have sort of caused the incidents to begin with. But all to say that that is not an easy environment to work in, and you really need a sort of this team approach to addressing this. And that is what the main cause for retention is. Otherwise, we will lose this talent pool. And I think everyone on the call here knows that that's not something that we can afford. So if employers are not willing to address this issue and sort of implement those policies, then they will not benefit from this incredible talent pool that's going to drive our industry forward. So with that, I just want to thank you for, again, allowing us the opportunity to share a little bit about what we do and thank all of our partners and industry sponsors, including RESCON, for all the work that they've done to date. So with that, follow us on Instagram, and if you have any questions, I can share my contact information. And thank you all again for doing this event and for having us here.
Thanks, Raleigh. That was a great presentation. And as she said, for more information on the BOLT program, be sure to follow them on Twitter. And I think LinkedIn and Instagram, especially for those features of current and past participants of the program. So moving on, we're going to start our panel discussion. And we have 3 panelists here today. The first panelist is Assistant Deputy Minister for the province's Anti-Racism Directorate, Nora S.O. Brown. Nora is the Assistant Deputy Minister, where she's working with partners across the Ontario Public Service, the broader public service, and in our communities to lead the government's anti-racism initiatives to identify, address, and prevent systemic racism in government policy programs and services. Our second panelist is Chris Campbell. Chris Campbell is the Equity and Diversity Representative of the Carpenters District Council of Ontario. He has been a member of the Carpenters Union for over 30 years. He is also on the Carpenters Union Benefits and Pension Plan Board of Trustees, and is also Local 27's on Executive Board. Finally, he is the chair of the Toronto Community Benefits Network Board. Our third panelist is Joseph Chao. Joseph Chao is a service technician within Tridel and has been in the construction field for close to 5 years. Previously, Joseph was working with the York Region District School Board as the First Nation, Métis, and In-Unit Student Advisor Facilitator. So we'll get started with the questions. I know I just introduced you all, but if you all wanted to kind of just briefly introduce yourself, your role, and what anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion means to you and or your employer. So I will start with Nosa.
Thank you, Amina. Thank you so much to all of you for organizing this event, and hello to my fellow panelists, Chris and Joseph. It's nice to see you. My name is Nosa Ero-Brown. I'm a Black woman. I am of Nigerian and Canadian descent, and I am so pleased to see and be part of this event today. I appreciate the land acknowledgement. Quite often we say it and move on as if that acknowledgement is not the business at hand. It is the business at hand. And I want to say that I appreciate that. My role is as the Assistant Deputy Minister for Ontario's Anti-Racism Directorate is to lead a team that looks at systemic racism and addresses them from a government perspective in our policies, in our strategies, and in our programs. We also are stewards of something called the Anti-Racism Data Standards, which enables organizations to collect race-based data. And we have been pushing for that. So for some of you who have received your vaccine, you would have seen that you were being asked to identify race. This is part of the push that we stand behind. And also, you will have seen that the minister who gave remarks earlier also had an announcement earlier today about a grant program to tackle systemic racism in Ontario. That's part of the programs that we administer, an anti-racism and anti-hate grant program. I don't have to tell this audience about the rise in hate incidences. I live 2 minutes walk from Michael Garon Hospital. I am a mother of 2 Black children, and it was very disheartening for me to see and read about nooses on construction sites. So from a personal perspective and from my own professional perspective, I'm very interested in what the government can do and what we do bring to the tackling of systemic racism in Ontario. Thanks.
Thanks, Nosa. We'll move on to Chris.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. Like she says, I'm the Equity Diversity Representative of the Carpenters District Council. My job is to promote the union, the district council to the local communities around the province. Or for instance, in Toronto, you'd have the TCBN, you'd have the Building Up organization, you'd have what else you'd have? You'd have Tridel Group, you'll have Hammerheads Group, you'd have the Afro-Canadian Contractors Association, and also other cultural groups. So I am one of the person that stay in touch with these folks and find out their concerns as it relates to the construction industry. So yes, so that's part of my group. I also take care of or assist with recruiting from the various community to a career in the construction trade. What else do I do? Yeah, pretty much it. That's what I do. I am like the liaison between the district council and the local community, but not just the Toronto, but the entire province of Ontario. Thank you for having me.
And you're also an active member of RESCON's Anti-Racism Roundtable too.
That's correct. And, whatever I can do to help to make a difference out there with folks on the Bypak community, LGBTQ community, equity seeking groups there. And thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And Joseph.
Hi, guys. Like you know, I'm Joseph Chao. My spirit name is Nishmakwa, which transfers into Two Bears. I am a proud First Nations man. I live in Markham, Ontario. I have been in the construction field for almost 5 years now. Like I said previously, I came from the York Region District School Board. I was the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit Student Advisory Facilitator. I also sat on the equity groups within the school board to bring the cultural learning and the awareness for the First Nation lens. I am with Tridel now. I am a service tech. It is a wonderful job. And recently I've been asked for assistance to kind of assist with the First Nation aspect of what's going on now, to do things in the right way, to be almost like a consultant. And if I don't know what's going on, then I'm able to use my contacts that I have previously to bring those contacts in to help better support our group. We do have a common grounds group, which is ran by the employees, for the employees. They're meeting monthly before. I know that the COVID has really dampened a lot of situations, but we are able to continue with the virtual meetings and to touch on issues, huge social issues, ranging from the George Floyd to the young man that lost his family in London, to the residential students that weren't able to make it home. I know that these are big steps that we are taking for all of our companies and all of our groups that we're working together. But I think with the little steps that we are taking together, we will now take the one big step as a whole. And thank you.
Thanks, Joseph. That kind of leads into my next question for you all. And so it's been just over a year since we kind of had a racial reckoning in the construction industry and more broadly speaking, Canadian society. So what are some of the challenges that you faced in your role to reaching existing DE&I goals, so diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, and what challenges remain and persist in future short and long-term goals? And I imagine COVID, I know, Joseph, you mentioned COVID, that has certainly gotten in the way of a lot of things. So I'm curious as to what you'll all say. If there's a particular order that people want to speak in, please just speak up. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going from Nosa to Chris to Joseph.
Okay, that works for me. And I feel free to jump in to my fellow panelists. So thank you for that question, Amina. You know, it's hard to believe that it's been a year since the murder of George Floyd, over a year, and also the relentless nature of racist incidents, discrimination, and also the discovery of burial sites, as Joseph mentioned. I think, you know, for everyone involved, sure, there is a reckoning happening. But one of the things, the challenges that I see in this line of work is the opportunity that we should not miss to make this work sustainable. Quite often, it's easy for organizations and individuals to kind of take action by talking or by tweeting or by, you know, various, you know, actions that would appear on the surface that we're doing something, but then the tendency is to go right back to the way we were doing things. And this is important because we don't want to go and careen to another incident or finding another news or another racial reckoning to be able to take stock. It's really a challenge to figure out what are the systemic changes that we need to do in hiring, in advertising, in removing systemic barriers, and we heard from both around some of that, in investing in communities, and having those difficult conversations, really get into the heart of the matter, and making sure that's a sustainable conversation over the long term, is where my head goes and where the head of my team goes. How do we sustain this beyond the initial reactions that we tend to see? A year later, I would admit, like, this time does seem that there are a lot of investments and people want to talk and want to genuinely know more, but we need to do more. Absolutely need to do more. It's not enough. And I think that working with industry like yourselves, working with government, we need to come together to really have a community solution to what we're seeing in terms of racism, systemic racism, and hate.
So like you've said, it's been a year or over a year since the reckoning, racist reckoning has happened in construction, in our industry. And you know, what are some of the challenges that we face? Well, some of the challenges are convincing some contractors of the importance of a diverse workforce, convincing them that representation matter, perception is reality, you know, find ways to show them that at every level of their company or organization where possible, you know, they should try and be more inclusive of women, BIPOC, and equity-seeking groups. My biggest challenge for me as a equity diversity representative was COVID-19. It took me a while since I got hired to actually start going out into the field to meet folks around the province to get a feel of what's happening and to see how we can improve things as a team. And one of my personal thoughts on equity, diversity, the challenges I have is measuring the results. I applaud I applaud the various levels of government putting tens of millions of dollars towards recruiting, training of BIPOC youths and women in the construction industry, trade sector. It's important for everyone's boat to rise with the tide of economic opportunity in our industry. It's just as important to have statistical data breakdown of the various groups of racialized groups. Their success and their failures in the trade it has to be able to be measured, I should say. Just like we do with COVID-19 victims, just like we do with the opioid addiction crisis victims, or just like we do day to day with safety on the construction sites. Yeah, just like we do with safety on the construction site, where you can tell me how many people fall to death last year or was electrocuted or had mental health issue on site. Yeah, that we should find a way to measure this. The unions, the construction secretariat, community agency, construction economists were always putting forward numbers. The construction association and the government must make notes of the result from these stats if we're going to gather this information. We can't just gather it, but we must pay attention to it. The intent is not to point the finger at each other, but to come up with practical, meaningful solution for the BIPOC community. This will result, or by us putting this by RESCON putting this information together, Amina will be better able to promote a lot more meaningful solutions to the issues of racism in our industry going forward. So yeah, my big thing is to be able to measure our progress. And to do that, we need the industry. We need all different facets of industry players to start putting all these information together. That way we can pinpoint, okay, which community needs help, which group needs help, and from there we can decipher it from there and go at it, instead of we're guessing and just throwing money at the issue. So that's my opinion on the racial reckoning and what we can do to, as an equity diversity representative, to make things better.
Yeah, sorry, before I kick it over to Joseph, I couldn't agree more on the data point. We've always said at RESCON, good data leads to good policy, and we can't really properly create policy and programs and then assess those programs without actually knowing where true issues lie. So yeah, I'm all for good data that is accessible to people who are really working towards inclusion in the industry. So yeah, I'm all for that. Anyways, I'll kick it over to Joseph.
Okay, thanks. I think one of the main challenges, for my culture alone, is the fact that it's hard to self-identify as First Nations. Nobody, I don't think, on this panel, Nora from Nigeria, Chris, yourself, Amina, need to prove to the government that you are what you say you are. I believe in the world, we are the only culture that needs to show a status card to say, I am First Nations. You can say that you're First Nations, but the government doesn't see you as being First Nations. So to assist with the statistics, we could have maybe 150, 200 First Nation people on a job site, but they don't self-identify as First Nations because the government doesn't see them as First Nations. That there is one of the, I would say, the largest hurdles for our long-term goals of getting things, getting everybody self-identified, but that needs to be self-identified or who wants to be self-identified. But that I think that is the biggest hurdle that I see for my culture coming into the construction field. The short-term challenges that we face, it seems that the media is taking charge of everything that is going wrong in the world, and they always post all the negative aspects of everything. So, for example, the George Floyd thing, you know what? It was plastered all over the media, as it should be. Then right after that, the young boy in London passed away. That was a huge media presence. Then it was the graves of the residential school children. And there's going to be more and more and more. But what I've seen as an individual is, yes, our company came and rose above when we needed to for our employees and for, well, the group as a whole. It was like I'm kind of blessed to be with this company. Like it doesn't even feel like a company. We feel like a family from all different aspects of all races. Our customer care team is very multicultural. We don't just see Caucasian employees. We don't see just Chinese employees. We don't see Black employees. We don't see Indigenous employees, and so on and so forth. It is a very multicultural team. And I think with having these round table meetings and webinars and continuing our Common Grounds group and bringing awareness to not just our customer care team, but to the company as a whole, is going to better our company to hopefully push other companies to try to be on our level now. And yeah, that's pretty much it right now.
So you kind of are, this is a natural flowing panel, but you're kind of like leading into the next questions, which is great. So thanks, Joseph.
I mean,
but not, sorry.
If I can interrupt, sorry, it's so hard to do this like virtually. I wish we were in person and have more of a natural flowing conversation. I know you're going into your next question, but there was something interesting, my fellow panelists, actually, there's a common thread here, and it's kind of like sustainability beyond kind of the actions that the immediate like trigger actions that we take. So Chris mentioned the piece about data. And so why aren't we having the conversation about race-based data collection, self-identification, ownership control, who has access to this information and how we can use it? Where the conversation tends to stay is that immediate gut reaction to things that happen, like what Joseph mentioned in the media, right? So when I was talking about sustainability, I think this point that Chris made about the lack of data, I can't tell you how difficult it was just to be able to enable us to collect race-based data as part of COVID. If we can't measure what's happening, how do we do anything about it? But I also understand the flip side of our communities, the different racialized communities who have a fundamental distrust of how data has been used in the past, right, against communities. So we need to watch for that. But absolutely, I think that we need to be able to figure out how we can demonstrate progress and what is progress, right? Because just because I'm in the Ontario Public Service, And I can tell you, just because you have an increase in the number of, I don't know, Black people in leadership, doesn't mean those Black people are safe, doesn't mean that they feel like they belong. So there's a next level that needs to be done. And how do we measure that as well? So I just wanted to kind of tie what we just talked about together. Amina, before you go on to the next question.
No, that's great. And we always say, like, we've heard it before many times, we need 100,000 construction workers within the next decade. So how do we improve recruitment and hiring practices? But it doesn't matter if you can recruit 20 youth onto a construction site if they're not going to stay past the first month. So it's about retention as well. And then again, this is kind of leading into the next question and kind of more on the hopefully on the sustainability side. How do we sustain our efforts? I'm a strong believer that the next generation or the younger generations of construction workers and just like Canadians in general are going to be better than current and past generations as it relates to just being more progressive and open. So what do you think needs to change in the construction industry to attract more youth and job seekers in general from racialized communities? And maybe I'll start with Chris and then Joseph and then Nosa, just because Chris and Joseph are actually on the ground. So yeah, Chris, go ahead.
Okay, so Raleigh mentioned a few points earlier, and they're also, I also share the same thoughts because I guess she's with Bolt, tried all with Bolt, and she is being exposed to some of the issues that I have encountered throughout the years, right? And Nosa, Joseph, this is my take on it. But first, we need to acknowledge some of the stigma, some of the myth that hinders Black youths from seeking an opportunity. Not necessarily now, but back in the days, but we're still wearing that or carrying that luggage of years gone by. Today, things are a little bit, or not a little bit, things are very much different in my opinion, compared to how it was 30 years ago when I started, right? Back then, you had parents, yes, our own Black parents discouraging us from getting into the construction trade because of their past and their perspective of things. You had high school, maybe guidance counselor or teachers that weren't connected to the construction industry, so they didn't promote it as much. Our local community institutions, organization, if you go there, it's highly unlikely, in my opinion, that they'll promote the trades. They're more talk about being a lawyer, a doctor, a nurse, etc. Right? Sometimes back in the days, it was you were kind of dismissed because it's something that we just didn't want our kids to get involved with, right? But we know today that a tradesperson make more than the average income of maybe the person you see walking down the street, right? And also too, we have to acknowledge that the union was seen by the community, like the BIPOC community, as an exclusive institution that only welcome some folks, right? Not now, but it was back in the days, right? And we should work from there to change the narrative of the past, right? Acknowledge the past look at some of the issue and work from there to improve things going forward. What we can do to attract youths, job seekers from racialized community, is to break down the stigma and myth that we talk about by changing our marketing strategy. Canadians, for the most part, they're educated people, the most educated people in the world, but perception is reality. Let the client, the customer, the individuals. We're aiming our TV ads or radio ads, right? The people are marketing opportunities to, right? We should let them be portrayed more in these ads and these messages, right? Let them see themselves. Let them see themselves as progressive individuals, right? You're catering to bring your marketing and catering to them coming in. Let them show the little the 18-year-old or the 21-year-old young person as a tradesman leaving work in his F-150 truck, going home, going up the 400, going down the 401, showing him achieving his home, et cetera, right? To let them see how tangible or how achievable this is, right? What do you do? What else can you do to market it? To market it to them? Because I believe in marketing, because I actually tried this years ago. Go door to door, you know, depending on the neighborhood, right? Go door to door with flyers depicting them as being successful, like I talk about, you know, whether it be from, you know, on a Saturday, get volunteers, go in there, hand flyers out with them on the flyer, you know, talking about, you know, what it's like being a tradesperson, right? Go to busy intersection, converse with youths, parents about what's happening on the flyer that you're handing out. Don't wait until someone is shot in the neighborhood. Then we run out there and sing Kumbaya. Don't wait until there's another Black Lives Matter protest, right? Don't wait until there's an election coming up. Be proactive. Normalize the practice of equity and diversity and inclusion, just like RESCON is doing. The point is to go beyond what we've been doing for decades. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It's also just as important to establish a framework to deal with the influx of people that you're going to get in when you go in the community, when you market it to the regular media, and when you go door to door, you're going to get an influx. And this is where NUSA comes in, right? Government-sponsored agency, institutions, the union, they should get together and prepare for folks that are coming in. Because some of the challenges you're going to have at that point is you're going to have to decipher their academic ability, their social economic challenges. You're going to have to probably prepare transportation, because most training centers or job sites are not within walking distance. Then you have to prepare training, make sure you have enough funding for training, and also work with the contractors to provide placement. Right. And all this is you know, at the beginning stage of things. Then when you get over to the employment and the retention, that's a whole different kettle of fish. But first, initially, work with the local folks, come together, and don't just do what we've been doing, where we just recruit, learn from our mistakes in the past, you know. After all, 90% of the construction projects in Toronto are unionized projects. There's nothing wrong I have been saying for a while, and I'm a big supporter of it. There's nothing wrong with importing people from around the world to fill the skill trades labor shortage, but balance this with opportunities for the local BIPOC youth. And I think if you do that, you prepare the framework and everyone get together and just put that extra effort in, I think we'll have a lot more positive results like Bolt is doing, Rally from Bolt is doing, like what Amina is constantly doing in the community, and other organizations like the TCBN, Hammerheads, the Carpenters Union Choice Program. Yes, there are a lot of successful programs out there, but we need to learn from our mistakes, and that's what I think will make a big difference to the job seekers from racialized communities. How about that? What's your thoughts, Amina?
I think it's a big task, but I think if we're all collectively committed to it, and when I say all, I mean every member of the construction industry is committed to bringing in more youth, training, retaining, hiring for the long term, I think it is possible. We'll move on to Joseph and then Nosa, and then we'll get into our final panel question.
Well, thanks, Chris, for covering everything I was going to say. But I think another thing that changed, which is affecting the construction industry, is the fact that growing up in Scarborough, there's 2 or 3 technical schools that the children and the youth that learn with their hands best were able to go to. They weren't university bound. They were more college bound and more trades bound. All those schools have closed. There's no school for, there's probably, I would say, a handful of schools in the Toronto area and the York Region area that actually have wood shops or have car programs or any in just construction basis that you can learn off of. It's a hard thing now to, like Chris was saying, a lot of people are pushing their children to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, but it's not for them. Construction could be for them. And like Chris was saying again, the wages for construction and the wages for the tradesmen and everything like that, they have gone up. They're doing very well, and it's going to be a group effort from everybody to try to snap the youth out of it and to get them to come to work. And maybe that's what needs to be done. You show the young man getting out of his brand new truck, like Chris said, and pulling up to his big, beautiful house, and them having the view of construction is that you're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're killing yourself and you're a laborer and all you do is lift up and do all this and everything like that. They need to know that construction isn't just labor. Yes, there are laborers, but there are tradesmen, there are tradeswomen, plumbers, electricians. Like Raleigh was saying, that the young man that was actually going to be an electrician, now he wants to become a sprinkler fitter, which is excellent. But he needed, and he got the opportunity to find out that the electrician wasn't really for him. But now he's going to go and pursue what he really wants. And it's hard to say, come. And like Amina was saying, yeah, they're there, but how do we get them to stay? For example, I had a young man with me, which was part of the program, and I was it was kind of like an apprenticeship program. He was given all the tools he needed for the job, all the work shirts, clothing, everything to look the part, to be the part. And his mind just wasn't there. And we tried, like, he was with myself, he was with a couple other service techs, and his drive to have the full-time job just wasn't there. And me personally, I don't know what's going to bring them in with the ropes, but it needs to be something. And maybe that's something that we can do again, like with RESCON, is sit down and, you know what, now we have our webinar, but let's now do a think tank of how we can incorporate everybody and get everybody on the same page to want to come to the trades. What do we need to do? Like, this is a huge question to answer, of what does the construction industry need to do? Like, I think we need like a huge think tank, and we need to brainstorm and figure out how to reel everybody in.
Thanks, Joseph. And just before I turn over to Nosa, we are, like, on your point, Chris and Joseph, about marketing and promotion. I do want to plug the Bypak in Construction Testimonial campaign that the Roundtable is working on. We've interviewed 10 BIPOC workers in the industry, or currently in the industry, and we will be launching that campaign in November. Again, just to show, like, young people, young BIPOC youth, this could be your pathway. You could have a similar pathway. You could have a similar job, a similar career trajectory, by showing them people that look like them. And so I'll just turn over to Nosa, and then we'll get into the last question and start to wrap things up.
Thanks. My fellow panelists definitely have a lot more to contribute in here than I do, being that I'm not in the industry. However, speaking from the perspective of someone who's working with other sectors who are also facing similar challenges, I hope, first of all, that we are making the space welcome to not only young men, but those who identify as women and others as well. Two things I will add to what Chris and Joseph have just said is, figuring out a way for us to tackle this issue at all levels. And that includes the target audience, i.e. the youth themselves. How do we actually engage them? Because I think that we all fall into the pattern of trying to figure out what is best for youth, but incorporating that youth voice. And I think at the beginning, someone said RESCON was part of the Black Youth Action Plan. How do we engage and see, what path and co-create with them in mind? Is one piece. Another thing that I would like to mention here is going back to what Chris mentioned around measurement, looking at the trajectory of youth, where they're coming from, where they're going, where do they tend to go. So starting way earlier, before they get to grade 12 graduation, starting earlier with opportunities, starting earlier with ideas, and exposure. Those kinds of policies, those kinds of practices, I think tend to help. We've seen that in other jurisdictions as well, where you're looking at the intervention very early, before the disenchantment comes, before they have opportunity to kind of age out and maybe join a system or go to a tertiary education. How we engage in early and engaging often to present construction and other paths as opportunities for youth.
Thanks, Nosa. And so we're just running out of time. So for the last question, I'm going to give you an option, but whichever question you decide to answer, if you could do it in one sentence. So what is one thing that organizations and individuals should take away from this discussion? So that's the first option. Or one thing that you can change in your daily life or with coworkers.
Okay, quickly, I can say quickly. Okay, Toronto, I've just seen recently on a program that Toronto has the most construction cranes of any city, or of all the major cities combined in North America. And the crane is indicative of the amount of work that's happening in our cities, right? Getting in the trades is one of the best thing that we can do at this time. Just, you know, it's been like this for years, and it's the forecast, it's going to be like this for a while. Why should we get in the trades? Above average income, good pension and benefits, safe working condition, a sense of pride in building the city, and a sense of belonging to an organization or association that takes care of our interests. RESCON, Amina, your staff, my fellow hosts, Nosa, Joseph, thank you for having me. And Nosa, I don't have much connection with the provincial government, so if you're okay with it, can we connect offline after? Thank you.
So I could jump in next, just quickly. So anyone, including Chris, can connect. You have my contact information through Amina. But the one thing I would say to take away is we are all change makers. We all have the opportunity to make change from our own sphere of influence. This is not just about RESCON. It's not just about government. It's not just about industry. We all have that opportunity, and you can start with learning what it is that you can do, what the issue is, and how you can help. And I would just leave it there. Again, thanks a lot for inviting me as well.
Thank you. And Joseph.
Okay. Thing that everybody should leave with is the world is changing. We are going to be the big part of this change. As a whole, we are stronger. We need to all work together. The companies need to work all together. Government needs to work all together. And once we start working all together, I think everything is going to work out fine. And just to add off, if sports has taught me anything, there is no me in team. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Nosa, Chris, and Joseph. We do a lot of webinars, but maybe I'm biased, but I think this is one of our best panels in 2021. But anyways, we'll close it off here, and I will turn it over to Ahid to deliver some closing remarks.
So thanks again to all our speakers. It was great to hear from all of you today, all of your ideas. It was great to see some of you also connect. So in 2018, the federal government launched the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which ran to 2015. The commission provided those directly or indirectly affected by the legacy of residential schools policy with an opportunity to share their stories and experiences. In late 2015, the commission released its final report detailing 94 calls to action. Like many others, we are asking our attendees to read the final report and the 94 calls to action. For all our events, we make a donation to a registered charity. For this event, we will be donating to Ms. Bypak Aboriginal Employment and Training. Ms. Bypak provides services to the Aboriginal people in the Greater Toronto Area to work with employers to secure employment opportunities, to deliver federal and provincial programs, and to promote Aboriginal entrepreneurship and the development of our economies. Ms. Bypak also facilitates training in the construction trades through partnerships with the GTA Union training centers and employers. Thank you all again for being here and for choosing to be part of the efforts made to combat racism in construction. And we're looking forward to have you all again in our upcoming webinars.
Thanks, everyone. And special thanks to the speakers and panelists.
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.